Good morning. Happy Friday. We made it. Okay. Well, I want to say I may have gotten in a little over my head. Not really, but I like to make these recipes like quick 15 minutes so I can show you the whole process. I can show you the whole thing during the live. Well, I really wanted to try this recipe, and as you know, I take one recipe and I rework it. I like to make it as close to the ideal macros that I teach. 35 protein, 35 fat, and 30 carbs. I like to make it ideal, okay? As close to ideal as possible. Obviously, not all treats are going to be able to get that way because they're treats. So we make them better. And in our house, we call them healthish. But these turned out really, really good. The original recipe with too high carbs, I wasn't happy with it. So we reworked it. And it is basically like a 7-layer cookie, okay? Usually I'm doing the muffins and stuff like that, which is fine, but sometimes you just want something a little ooey gooey. So what we did was the crust, and let me show you here. So they have a little crust. Can you see that? Okay. It has a crust that's made with almond flour and coconut flour, and you bake that. So it's in steps, okay? Yummy. So, and I will post the recipe, and I actually took a video that I will post of me putting it together. So, crust, 350 degrees, a mixture of almond flour, coconut flour, either butter or coconut oil, and salt. You know, just mix it all together like you're making your graham cracker crust for a 7-layer cookie. 2 cups almond flour, ½ cup coconut flour, ½ cup melted coconut oil or grass-fed butter, a 1/4 cup of allulose. Now, I used 1/3 cup of allulose because if you use allulose, you know that it's not as sweet, so you have to use a little bit more. And then a pinch of salt. For the filling, so you bake that, okay? You put your crust in, you bake it. 12 minutes up, it'll be on the recipe. Now the filling, you do a ½ cup of unsweetened coconut. And it would have been really good with walnuts. But I'm going to the store today and I don't have any more walnuts. But I love a good walnut, and they're high in omega-3s and they're just yummy. And they're also what's in the original 7-layer cookie. So you, on top of your crust, you lay your coconut. On top of that, you can use the Lily's sweet, unsweetened chocolate or keto chocolate chips. But you know me, I've got my bag of seconds of my spring and mulberry chocolate, the date-sweetened chocolate. So I just took 1 bar and chopped it up, and you can kind of see them, you can kind of see the chocolate chips, right? You can also use cocoa nibs. Cocoa nibs are great because they're totally natural, full of fiber, and they give you a nice little crunch. I wasn't feeling cocoa nibs today, so didn't put those. I used blanched almonds. I don't have them here to show you. I used chopped up almonds and I roasted them to make them a little bit crunchier. Put those on top. And just for a little more crunch, I threw in some sunflower seeds and some pumpkin seeds. The minerals that are in sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds, you've got selenium, you've got zinc. They are really, really good for you. So threw those in for a little variety, a little crunch. And then you make a caramel sauce. So the caramel sauce is, and I used some of this coconut cream last week. And I will show you in the payday bars. So a half cup of coconut cream. Now this is the thick part, okay? So there's coconut water, of course, in the little containers that you drink. And I've been talking about that a lot because it is full of potassium and trace minerals. So when we're talking hydration, if you do mineral salt in your water, that's great for trace minerals, sodium. The coconut water is fantastic to balance that because it has potassium, great source of potassium. But this is what you get in the can of coconut. I think it's called coconut cream. I don't think it's called, it might be called coconut milk, okay? But what it is it's the liquid, okay? The liquid that you can see. And at the top, it's the thick coconut fat, okay? And that's the coconut cream. So you've got coconut water, coconut milk, and coconut cream. That is similar to if you buy farm fresh milk, or if you buy very lightly homogenized milk, or milk that's not homogenized, and you get the separation. The cream rises to the top. So if you're looking at a container of fresh milk, you have the lower fat at the bottom because it sinks, and then the medium fat, and then the cream rises to the top. That's what happens with the coconut as well. You've got the coconut water, the stuff you're drinking, there's very little fat in it. Then you've got the coconut milk that's a little bit thicker and a little bit more viscous, and then you have the coconut cream that is in the top of the can that you have to get through. Okay, so that is thick. What I did, and I also took a picture, I think I took a picture of how this looked in the pot. So I took one date. You know I love my dates. And the medjool dates, or medjool dates. I don't know. How do you say that? Let's have a little, someone send me how you say that. I'll have to ask ChatGPT. Anyway, one date. Soak it in warm water for about 5 minutes. It doesn't really matter. Just soak it so it gets soft, okay? And then you take I did a little over a third cup of allulose. You know my favorite sweetener. And butter. 2 tablespoons of grass-fed butter or ghee. Just like you're making a caramel sauce, you take the grass-fed butter and the allulose, put it in a pot, stir it up, let it stir for, you want to get it bubbly and light. Throw in a little vanilla in that, and it will start to get bubbly and thicken. You want it to get like we're making a caramel sauce. So you whisk that together, sweetener, the allulose, sugar, then you make a date paste out of the one date. And then you slowly whisk in a half cup of the thick coconut cream, okay? Now, I will tell you, my little hack, I love my inversion blender, right? My stick blender. So I took my pot, sugar, butter, got that bubbly, boiling for probably 5 minutes, got it all nice and bubbly and creamy. Added the vanilla. I threw my whole date after I soaked it. Don't add the water because you don't want this to be liquidy. Took the soaked date, so it's nice and soft, put it in the pot. Added my coconut cream, and then I took the immersion blender and blended it while it was boiling, and you let it cook and boil and get all bubbly for about 10 minutes. That will thicken it up. Then you assemble the bars. On your crust, you put your coconut, your nuts. I put my seeds, my chocolate, just like a 7-layer cookie bar. And then you take the caramel sauce and pour it over. Then you put it back in the oven, and you bake it for 12-15 minutes. So it's a process, but it wasn't, it was more than I could do in this 15-minute live. I like to keep short and sweet, but it's just like making a regular 7-layer cookie. So it was really no big deal. And I'm telling you, they are delicious because it's like a cookie crust. This bottom part, the bottom crust looks just like a cookie crust. And then you have the seeds and the gooey caramel. That's a keeper. That's a keeper. That is so good. Now, okay, that caramel sauce just kind of soaked in. Now they're still a little warm because I just took them out of the oven. But that caramel sauce got all kind of golden brown. We'll see when it cools, when they cool off. I'm sure they're going to stick together a lot better. Because that caramel sauce kind of has it pulled together. It's not as thick as, you know, the evaporate or the sweetened condensed milk that you pour on the 7-layer bars. But man, those are delicious. Okay, so I'm going to post a link, not a link. I'm going to post the recipe and the video in under this in the comments. Let me know if you try it, if you make it, because it's really yummy, and I'm not disappointed with all the seeds I put in it because really good crunch, and you can change this up and put whatever you want on it. All right, so I got to rant for a minute. I heard some really, really disturbing things from patients this week, and I am going to be talking about them. I will tell you, if you've listened to me on my live on Wednesday, seen some of my posts, I am beyond disheartened and annoyed with our traditional medical system. The nonsense, we are supposed to be educated. Well, let me take that back. Yes, we are educated, but we should be knowing the most advanced research and the most advanced studies, and we should not still be looking at old, outdated data. So I was told by a patient this week that her gynecologist who was writing her hormones, that's a whole other story because I believe she was on oral estrogen. You should never take oral estrogen. I had another patient this week who was taking oral testosterone. Oral testosterone is not approved for women. There are new compounds that have just been approved for men, and we can talk about that. They bypass the liver, but I'm telling you, it is ridiculous. People are doing things that they shouldn't be doing because they have no clue how to do it. Oral estrogen should never be given. It is the one route of estrogen that has the highest risk. So why that's being given, I don't know. But add to that, the provider, the gynecologist told my patient that she had to go off of all of her hormones by the time when she was 60 years old. Why? Because traditional medicine is still looking at research from 1950, from a horrible research study that was stopped because it was so bad. Women were given horse estrogen, and that is what women's health and hormone health has been used. That was the supposed gold standard, and that is why so many traditional medicine providers are afraid to give hormones. There is no reason to stop bioidentical hormone replacement if monitored correctly and if written correctly. You test for optimization. Once you stabilize any kind of side effects or hormone imbalance you have going on during perimenopause and menopause, then you test and dose to optimize the hormone levels for longevity, for brain health, for bone health, for all of the benefits it has. There is no reason to stop. And that is only one of the stupid myths that I heard this week that I am going to demystify. A second one is that you don't need T3. yes, you need T3. So if you're going to an endocrinologist who is supposed to be the specialist, they're supposed to be the hormone specialist, and you're only getting a TSH tested, shame on them. Shame on them. You need at least 4, if not 6 of the 9 or 11 thyroid markers there are out there. And they all need to be put together, and your thyroid should not be controlled by one lab test. That's the second ridiculous thing I heard. The third ridiculous thing I heard was someone was actually told, someone who was on semaglutide for weight loss, was literally told it was inevitable that they were going to become diabetic. This woman was already at a healthy weight, did not need semaglutide for diabetic reasons. And she was told that it was inevitable that she was going to become diabetic. Why? Now, if you do nothing, and if you don't watch your diet, and if you don't exercise, and if you keep eating the crappy processed non-food that is in our standard American diet, then, yep, you're headed to be diabetic. But that is not inevitable. And for a provider to talk about that being as inevitable, and you might as well just stay on the injectable medication forever because you're bound to be diabetic. That is criminal. That is a sad state that our medical system is in. Okay, rant over. It really disheartens me. So, everybody, if you have questions about what your provider is telling you, doing for you, lab work, anything like that, shoot me a DM. Let's have a conversation, because it is time to get out of the nonsense that we have been told, the dismissive state that so many providers are putting us in. And again, I'm not blaming the provider. I am blaming the system, because we are all trained in the same system. And that system is the perpetual, I have one problem, I'm going to give you one pill. We need to look at the big picture. So I hope you make these. I hope you like them. They will probably be gone in my house by Sunday. Probably. I have the macros also. I will share those when I share the recipe. All right, everybody, have an awesome weekend. Enjoy the sunshine. Bye-bye.